a successful ministry, and people would normally just see the pastor and the church, but there are some people that will not always be recognized, that are always in the forefront, that is holding down the ministry to ensure and doing certain things to ensure that the ministry, for example, some people love the worship ministry. Pastor Monet Carter is in charge of the worship ministry, does a wonderful job. Some people have joined because they love the worship experience. Some people love Word Alive Bible Study. And so all of these ministries that are part of New Destiny, all these carry weight to how successful we are. I would say this without fear of being contradicted, that without the team that I have, I highly doubt that we would have been as we are. Not saying that we would have been a failure, but God said necessary to ensure that the work gets done. And I have Aaron's and her holding up my hand to do what I do. So every time people ask me, how do you do what you do? How do you travel and do this and do all that you do as a man of God? How's the destiny growing the way it's going? How are you keeping it together? And I always say these words: I have a great team, and God has sent great people. And so,
hi everyone, welcome back to the Pregnant with Destiny, What's Stuck podcast. The purpose for this podcast is to help kingdom citizens, faith-minded persons, purpose-driven people discover, identify their gifts, and then use their gifts to impact the world for God, whether through ministry initiatives, whether online businesses, projects, whatever you feel called to do or God has called you to do. This podcast is to help you to give birth, is to help you to get unstuck. And I am so elated, so excited tonight because I have with me in the house, the doc is in the house. He's in the house. And I'm so excited. This is my pastor. So excuse my excitement. This is my pastor. And I always tell him he's my Samuel. He is the one who called me out of, like Samuel did with David, called me out of into what God had destined for me. I teach because of him. And I don't want to get emotional, but I teach because of him. So I am so excited to have in the house my pastor, Dr. Reverend Glen Russell. And we're gonna have a good time in this session. You're gonna get to know him a little better, and we're gonna chat. So Dr. Russell, and if I call him pastor from time to time, excuse me, introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us who you are. When Dr. Glen Russell walks in the room, what walks in?
Thank you for having me, Pastor Clark. It's a joy to be with you. And I'm so excited. I got to say this first off before I even get into that. I am proud of you, what the Lord is doing in your life and how you are expanding on the gifts that He has called you to do. I watched from the time we connected, come and get to do a teaching or training and development course. And now you are the Christian education director for the church, and what as a coach. And I guess as a blossom as a person is so rewarding. I see what the Lord is doing in your life, and it just speaks of what you're talking about right now, how to become unstuck and deploying your calling and your gifts. Well, for me, Glen Russell, humble man of God, and because I believe, even though I'm a man, I believe my purpose is in the fact that God has called me. I have no blueprint, no map to say I have done this, that, the other to take the credit. It's all God. Me just obeying God. Here, I heard a voice speak to me, and I the voice of God. And here I am today doing what I do as a pastor. And I believe I've been placed in the earth to do is to pastor God's people, is to shepherd, to help, to come into their gifts and their call. When I'm done doing this, He can call me home. I just love it. I wake up to pastor. I wake up to touch lives, help to people to discover who they are and their gifts and their call in different ways. And everybody have their way they do it. So, of course, I'm a husband, married for 13 years to one. And this season, you got to say consecutive. 13 years to one. Elder Makai Russell. I have Cynthia and Makai. They have the wind beneath my wings. My past church, the Destiny Kingdom Center, the greatest set of people, greatest set of leader on this side of heaven. And to be honest, Pastor Clark is the people that cause me to wake up every morning, because they are the reason I do what I do. And that's purpose. Besides my business, besides my things like on the side, but that's the meat of who I am, the shepherd that God has called me to be to those great people, and the father and husband that I am to my family. And yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Pastor. So how did you get started in ministry? When did this all start?
Well, to be honest, I grew up around church. There's a saying that says you can grow up around church, but that don't mean church or God grew up in you. I saw it all. I saw missionaries build church from the ground up. I've served in music ministry, praise and worship ministry. So I know there was a call in my life to ministry. How far I would have went with that, I did not know. Because the truth be told, Pastor Clark, I started out life, I was an introvert, believe it or not. And God took an introvert and then used that introvert to be a preacher, speaker, motivational speaker. So I sing and do all these things, leading worship. And that's to see how God even take my life and make it what he wanted to make it. Even that is a miracle. And just growing up around it. And then at one point, a personal relationship with God. And that was for years. And after I came into a personal relationship with God in those seasons, through the music, through the worship ministry, God called me to pastor one day. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. And starting a church was not on my bucket list, was not on my tick-off list, to-do list. But I know one day I probably would have took over from another leader and get the vision. But of course, many other plans in the mind's eye. And I had some plans, and God definitely hijacked my life and pulled me. So I tell people I wasn't sure of many things in life, but I was sure when he called me, spoke to me and said, now it's time for you to start the ministry, do what I've called you to do. And to be honest, like most people, there's no real prophet, no real pastor, no real teacher that said yes right away. They always run from it. And you did a great teaching. You did a great teacher on Jonah, and we saw how he ran from the call of God in his life, and only to end up right back where God called him to be.
Right back.
And so for me, it started out with just music, and I thought I would have stayed there. Worship, I was comfortable there. And then, like I said, I got connected to my final phase of ministry when I got connected to Bishop Dr. Grant, my former pastor, and the church that I came out of, Universal Hospital of Faith. And I said, I will park right there, take over from him later on in life as the Lord saw fit. And then boom, and in the midst of that, he called me, and I answered the call. And February will make 9 years that I've been pastoring the great New Destiny Kingdom Center.
Wow, 9 years, that's a long time.
Yes, it is.
For some people that's long, for some people that's actually short.
Yes. Well, Pastor Clark, any years in pastoring is a long time. Because you're dealing with personalities, dealing with people, you're administrating, you're orchestrating, and sometimes it's trial and error. And so it could feel long, even though it might be short. And in some people who have been pastoring for 30 years, it may seem like a short time. But for me, 9 years doing this is a beautiful journey, but it also has its challenges and stuff like that help me to grow and develop character as individuals. So I wouldn't trade it. But 9 long years, but 9 wonderful years that God has used to develop me as a person, me as a leader, and me as a pastor.
Wow. So I kind of a little biased when I say this. I think New Destiny, and that's the reason why I'm going to say this. I think New Destiny is one of the fastest growing churches on this island. I think, and also in this country. I think it's very progressive. It's growing a lot.
Yes.
What do you contribute that to?
I would say this. I contribute that just to obeying God. Just every season of the life of New Destiny was obedience when it didn't make sense. And then the thing given me people, and I'm not going to be biased. I think I have the best teacher on this side of heaven. And God sent key persons to help me. You understand? And a lot of people don't realize that when we get up on a given Sunday to preach, there's so much that goes into that people don't see. There's so much a successful ministry And people would normally just see the pastor and the church, but there are some people that will not always be recognized, that are always in the forefront, that is holding down the ministry to ensure and doing certain things to ensure that the ministry, for example, some people love the worship ministry. Pastor Monet Carter is in charge of the worship ministry, does a wonderful job. Some people have joined because they love the worship experience. Some people love Word Alive Bible study. And so all of these ministries that are part of New Destiny, all these carry a weight to how successful we are. I would say this without fear of being contradicted, that without the team that I have, I highly doubt that we would have been as we are. Not saying that we would have been a failure, but God's necessary to ensure that the work gets done. And I have Aaron's and her holding up my hand to do what I do. So every time people ask me, how do you do what you do? How do you travel and do this and do all that you do as a man of God? How's the destiny growing the way it's going? How are you keeping it together? And I always say these words, I have a great team. And God has sent great people. And so, to be honest, to following God, I tell them, me as a pastor, and you can attest to this, if God comes in the room on a given Sunday where he's moving and speaking and preach, I back aside, let him be God. And I think God, any way he could come and be himself and his glory could be seen, he'll show up to it. And if God is showing up to it, it has to grow because it has a stamp of approval on it.
Yes. I totally agree. So what advice would you give to a young pastors like yourself who just starting the journey, or persons who feel called to become a pastor or to lead a church? What advice would you give?
That's a wonderful question. I always sit down and say, I see some young pastors, I always say, I wish I could have a conversation with them. So they're struggling a little bit and I could see why. And so if I can have a conversation with the call of God on their life, or maybe they have already begun and have a little struggle, one thing I would say is, one, make sure you're hearing God. Because if he didn't call it, he won't sustain it. Call it, he will sustain it.
Yes.
You sure that you heard God write the vision. The first sermon in the New Destiny Kingdom Center, I spent a week in prayer just writing down everything I heard God say concerning the New Destiny. And the road Pastor Clark was not half of it. I haven't even seen yet. When it comes to the vision of what God has given. Because I wrote school, I wrote community center, I wrote all these stuff. We just sing the church part of it, but there's so much more to it. So you got to write the vision, and then what that does, and I know you are really good with goal setting and stuff like that, and I've learned a lot from you as well, is that keeps you on track. Everybody else doing what they're doing over here and doing what they're doing over there, what you have written down. The only way you can have runners if you have writers.
Yeah.
And the only way you can have writers is if you are hearing God. So for me to have vision runners, I have to write the vision of one. So people to be attracted to something that you've been sure of. People not going to be attracted. If you can't sell it, they ain't going to believe it.
No.
So you got to be able to sell. And when the Lord to me, and when I came back and I gathered my family, if they were unsure about me, I was saying what he said. And they said, we ain't know what's going on, but we know he has something. Because the way how he's articulating this thing, he had to have something. Do you understand? And so I would say that. And then again, find people that have walked the path you've walked. The truth of the matter is, in this Pastor Clark, you don't even have to like someone to learn from them.
That's true. Yep.
And I think that's key, because there's some things I don't have to experience because someone experienced them and taught me. And so I don't have to take that road. So that road. So what it does, it limits some of the failures, because I've allowed someone else who failed on their failure to teach me how not to fail like that. I'm going to have my own failures and success to bring balance to who you are. But you really don't have to walk if you have a teacher that have already walked it and they just teach you how to avoid it. I love standing in the company of people that have went ahead of me, In my generation, sometimes you get, oh, Moses, my servant, is dead. No, Moses is still yes. In some cases, go to Moses and ask
Yeah.
Moses how he came out of Egypt, so you can
Yeah.
understand how would you take people into the land of
That's
promise.
right. That's right.
We tend to throw them aside, but they have
Yeah.
all men I call you because what? You know, I can find someone who teach me the way I incorporate that and what God has called me to do. I take what's for me, what's not for me, I leave it alone. But I always honor those that went ahead of me. And then you need strong administration. You have to have strong administration. If you don't have, to be honest, every pastor should have administration on them or have an administrator with them.
With them, yes.
If you don't have proper administration, and to be honest, we are still growing, and even in that, you will make progress, and as quick as you make the progress, you'll digress. Because there's nothing that is keeping the engine service. Administration keeps what you're doing service. But if you, 100 people, you have not put nothing in place to minister to them on the pulpit, then you're going to lose them.
Yeah.
If you don't properly, you can't manage your bills, you can't manage your stuff, and so you find out that you end up one location and you have to move to go to another location. And that stuff speaks to the integrity of your ministry. And when we move into Crosstown Plaza, we haven't moved until we move where we are right now. Understand? And our next move, either we're going to own that or we're going to build something from there. But that up and down all over the place is and people with families, if you have a family, your family gets anywhere. There has to be stability. There has to be accountability. There has to be transparency. All these stuff people are looking for them to say, I want to be a part of this. So people see that. They see when things are order, when there's chaos, when there's whatever balance things. Have God, write the vision, make it plain. Connect with those who have walked before you. And make sure whatever you need to do, find people. Ask questions when it comes to administration to ensure that what you're building. Because if you don't administrate it, it'll fall apart right before you.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Powerful points and principles for leaders, upcoming leaders, young leaders. Powerful. The journey. Let's talk about the journey, Pastor. Yes. Was it an easy journey? It was just nice and smooth and just one big party. I'm just happy and yes. Tell us about the journey.
And that's a wonderful question, Master Clark. Even me, it's funny, your assignment to unstuck people. And I think a lot of people get stuck thinking that because they start, everybody is with them.
Yeah.
And so you got to realize that when God called you, he called you by yourself. And so that's something I had to learn really early in the journey, is that don't dictate the call they did not hear. Woo.
Wow.
Man don't have, they could help, but don't let man be the reason you don't do what God said. Their support or the lack thereof.
Wow.
You got to be able to, when he called you, to remember this thing, to declare this thing, to move this thing, whether you or not. I can be honest with you, when I came and I told the public about what the Lord called me to do, all kind of things. Oh, we ain't supporting that. You are bitter in your feelings. Your former church hurt you, and you just doing it to get back at them. And you're too young. You're too young. You have a young family. You don't do this. At the time, you didn't have no kids. But you have no children. How you go and all that stuff? And developed really early on the journey that I heard God. And I would rather find out later he said that I missed him than to don't do it and find out that he actually said it. But to find out that I've missed him than to let people talk me out of what I heard from him.
Yes.
And so that entire to where we are right now, and I'm gonna say it was all bad. There were great moments, great days, great years, but at the same time, there were painful experiences. There were tears. My marriage went through a turmoil because of it. I didn't balance well, and my marriage took a turn with that. But of course, you learn, and from that, birthed our marriage ministry in our church. And so So I learned in it, and I've lived long enough past the class. And this is for all your subscribers and those who are part of your journey when it comes to being unstuck, that I have concluded that no matter what happens, who shows up, don't show up, at one point, you will realize that the same people that said no will come to you and request of you some of the very things that they would have said was not present or God did not do. I prayed for people who said God didn't call me. People have preached in New Destiny who said that God didn't call it. It's amazing. They preached, they ministered, prophesied, all these stuff, and in the beginning they did not. What if I did not answer the call because of them? That was an opportunity that they wouldn't have to preach. What would have happened? I'm not saying that I would have been the only person, but whatever happened to Shurmon Clark? Had the gift, not fully operating in it, because you were doing it in the business world, but then God called you to church to teach.
Yes.
And so if the destiny didn't exist, not saying that you wouldn't have come into it, but it helped all of the leaders them around who pulled out of obscurity and now are leading and doing wonderfully well. And so for me, while the journey was painful, we went, get put out of buildings, people give me 6 months, like I said. I remember when we asked that first place of worship, the person said to me, Pastor Clark, if I knew you would have grown this fast, I would have never rented you the building.
Wow.
And so you can imagine, we were in a service and I was called outside the service to say, this your last Sunday, coming will be your last Sunday in that particular facility. Woo! Did you imagine that? And then you can imagine, I told y'all, now wait and carry them. We end up in the hall, breaking down, setting up every night, all that stuff like that, every Sunday. Woo! It was good and bad, but it was like, man, I'm getting home at 12 o'clock in the night after setting up to preach again tomorrow. And then at the time, we had no worship teams. I was the worship leader and the preacher.
All in one.
But look at what the Lord has done.
Yes.
And the amount of people that have walked through the doors to destiny, some are no longer there, but they're doing what God called them to do. They got their start there. God called them there. God singled them out there. God started give up there. And now they are doing what they do in the earth. And that speaks to the call of God on the house. So for me, it's rewarding. Yes, had painful season. Yes, we had stressful days. At the end of the day, God was glorified. People were edified. And guess what? The devil's still horrified.
Okay, Pastor. So you were talking about your journey, the challenges along the way, and you mentioned something I think that's powerful for other pastors. You talk about the impact on your marriage and how that birthed a ministry. Tell us more about that. I think that's really powerful stuff.
Yes. The thing about it is that we could allow our call, our gift to sometimes supersede our assignments when it comes to family life and everything else. So even though you are doing the work of the Lord, to the balance in the time,
yes,
like I was so big on making this ministry successful and do whatever it takes. But while in the beginning, my wife didn't mind the sacrifice. But I get lost in God's bride and forgot I had a bride. It's God's bride. But Cara was my bride. And so if I did not develop the understanding and the discipline to realize that it's God's search, like it's not Glen's church, it's God's search. And if he called it, he will sustain it. But he gave me responsibility to love my wife. And so while I was doing great in ministry and paying the bills and all this stuff like that, my wife was home waiting for me. And I thought because the lights were on, and then I realized she would rather be in the dark with me than the lights on and I'm not there. And so we gone through a season where she was competing with my assignments. Without not completing my assignment, competing with my assignment. One of the things you ever want is someone that you are connected to, married with, to have to compete with. Because trust me, they can, and then you will have that friction. You can't function properly if there's a fight against what you call to. Oh my God. There's a fight again from the inside of what you call to. And the fight is warranted. It wasn't a wrong fight. I'm fighting for my husband that everybody gets every week, every Sunday. I need him for me. Because survival, I'm lonely while everybody is getting the counseling stuff. I didn't see it. All I saw was I'm a pastor. But you have to understand this until I almost lost what God blessed me. As a matter of fact, I was married before I became a pastor. I was called before I was married. This is what I told my wife. I said, before I met you, I was called before I met you. I was called. Yes, you were called. I respected that call, but you wasn't a pastor.
Yeah.
We answered that call and said yes. And so
exactly.
Had to pull that in. Of course, I can't go to the whole thing because we have time for it. But when God showed me and I started to focus on my family and my wife and stuff like that, and I got to the place where I said, God, this is your church. If you can't fix it, then it can't be fixed. Got to the point that my wife got her husband again. And then New Destiny got Minister McCarroll.
Yes.
The problem is she was there and she wasn't there. And so you get the best of when I give my best to her. Like a priest like that.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
The church get the best of my wife because I give the best of it. I don't give her left.
Yes.
And so there were times that I needed for the church, and she had no problem filling in because the church does no longer have a husband. It's not first priority. Now, I am big on my vacation time. I'm big on my sabbatical. I'm big on family time. And so she don't get to compete anymore. And I learned that lesson. And even those that are aspiring to be and do whatever God has called you to do, remember that whoever you're connected to, your family, should not compete with it. It should have to complete.
Yes, that's powerful, Pastor. And I'm sure Minister Elder McCarry is grateful for that.
Yes.
What's runs in mindset?
Yes. It's a journey. And see, there were lessons that I learned on the journey that people come right offended to me. But when I picked it up and I learned it myself, it becomes a part of who I am and a part of what I teach. That's why I try not to make New Destiny a church where we always having something every week, just gang on, because I want you to be focused on your family. And that's so church, because you're from church to church, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so, and we have to give room for families as your family. That family will become an enemy to the church that their family member go to. You never want husbands fighting for their wives in the church. They serving you and they can't find them home. No, we want to always keep that. So out of my pain, out of my struggle came a ministry. And that's how we are able to minister to marriages. My counseling sessions are, they're amazing. Like, some people come in my counseling sessions sometimes, Pastor Clark, and they say, I don't even ask you questions based on your story. Based on what you share. That's all I need. I go home right now and make changes. And so, that for me right there is just a blessing.
Yes. Yes. Amen. Pastor. New Destiny. Let's shift to New Destiny. But what's the motto of New Destiny? What is New Destiny called? What are people New Destiny is called to reach?
And that's a great question. And it's not complex, but it's still broad. And I think the name itself, New Destiny, gives you an idea of what the church mission is, to bring people into, they were on a destiny, they were on a path. Now we got shift where they were, where God has called them to be. So now New Destiny. And for me, I feel like if we do church and just go after those who know church, then there was the purpose of being a church. So there has to be an unchurched generation that we're called to reach, that don't know what church is, that can feel safe and belong. And that's why we got to be open to people who don't know how to dress, who've never been part of the church, never been. I don't know how I'm supposed to act in here. There's some people who come in and just say that they don't have no church clothes and we can't judge them, we can't mishandle them. Those who have been rejected. I know what it is to be rejected people didn't see value in me until I became. Understand? I want to be the person that sees value in people that help them become. It's not trying to become, fighting against in a system that don't even see the value in you. So a lot of stuff that I had to fight for on my own. If people saw enough in me, I would have commented in no sooner or less bound. And so if I could identify someone society rejects and say there's purpose in you, clean them up. Let God clean them up, place them. Let God use them. And we don't get to be the that says, or we waited until you become to use. No. We saw value in you. And our job as a church is to reach you and pull you out of that place of rejection and place you in what God is calling you to do. And so there's a whole blanket of how we cover the rejected, the misused, the hurt generation. And this generation is full of purpose. Full of purpose. The only way we could preserve prosperity for future generation is we gather with the prayers right now. And we be able to bridge that gap between generations and cause a synergy to happen where the old understand the assignment, the new understand the assignment, and know that we need both generations to make this thing happen for the kingdom of God. And so that's what we are after. You know, if you look at our church, Pastor Clark, you of course you would know this. We have the young, we have the old, we have the middle. All of them are part of our church, even in our leadership. I have people who could be my mom, who could be my grandmother, be my grandfather, be my daddy. And they're there. I have children, people who could be my children. They're there. And so sisters and brothers, they're there. So you could tell that we are a multi-generational church. We're called to break the status quo on the line that separates generations. And so that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. So you're more than just a church for young people.
Not just young people. People thought because I was young, I would only have young people. But when they walk in there, they see you. And that's something I always brag about. I gotta say this. My success in ministry is not the young people. It is the seniors that could call me son and grandson that submit and say, whatever the Lord gives you, pastor, I'm here to help serve that too. And so for me, that's the blessing. I expected the young people. I was a youth pastor before I became a senior. I expected to attract young people, young ministry, energetic, yes. And when you attracted the more senior things or seasoned things, and they say, I want to be a part of this, I want to help you fulfill the assignment for this ministry. That is a blessing. And I give God praise every day for people like that have been a part of the journey.
Excellent. Well, we'll wrap up with this. You're also a businessman. You've written some books. You have media, business. So tell us about that. You believe a pastor is more than just preaching.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Pastor Glen, wonderful question. Your questions, I guess, on point. I can sit in front of the interview all day. But the way I look at it is that you have a family. You want to leave a legacy for them. And that's not just spiritual. That's some Abraham left wells for Isaac.
Yep.
And so
a lot of
it wasn't just he left the Lord for him. He left wealth for him. And a lot of times we look at success and say, okay, I'm a good preacher, we're moving around preaching and stuff like that. But then God also gives you gifts. And it's not He gives you gifts. And the truth of the matter is, I think a lot of people, this might be a little touchy, a lot of persons prostitute because they don't have a substitute. What do you do? If the church is your money, where you get your money, what happens? For example, my business took off in the pandemic. It was the pandemic that Kingdom Media Design took off. Yes. And it was, of course, a media company, of audiovisual. And it is in a season where the church was shut down. And now the destiny was already here because of what last was not my field. We were already ahead in it, so we wasn't lacking or trying to find what we could do. We had the equipment. And so a lot of people who look and say, we need all of that, was calling me to make sure their members get to hear what they do on a Sunday morning. And so New Destiny was birthed not because it was just a gift I had or media was something I developed. It was birthed because the world was finding themselves in a crisis.
Yes.
There was a major problem. You will only be successful when you can solve world problems. The reason why the Unstuck coach is important is because that's a problem you're about to solve. Some problems. There's some people with gifts and calls and have been anointed by God, but they're stuck.
They're stuck. Yes.
And God has anointed you, gifted you, you've educated yourself, and that's another thing to Pastor Clark. Like, we gotta realize that even though you are anointed by God, there's still some things in the earth that you gotta do. And that's the reason why I went to Bible college, even though New Destiny was doing well. But I said, I don't want to. I want to make sure I do the best I can. I went from bachelor's to master to doctorate degree, and it helped me tremendously. And so you are solving a problem.
Yes.
And as long as you can never go out of business once you're solving a problem.
No.
And so that came about then, and then I am a person I love. But because I was an introvert, I never talked much, and I love to talk. And you can't get a all out in one conversation. So I love the reason I love to talk. I love the conversation on purpose. Like this right now we're doing, this would get me and it gets me going. I love constructive conversation. And so you can never get it all in one conversation. Like we gotta end this right now. I'm getting, but I can put some more in the book. There's sermons that I preach that I could not. If I go, I will be there till 3 o'clock, but I can put it in the book. And so the book part, the author came because I had so much. I had to get it out. I read a book on the pandemic because I was just here, and there was so much in me. There was so much going on. Writer, and so and then my wife and I were book together. And that came from our experiences with our husbands. So you gotta look at your life and see more than just what you're doing for a job. Because most of the time, the job is only a vehicle to get you to purpose. And so the businessman came out of me because purpose was there. But purpose, there was more. And there was a greater reach. There was a need. There was a problem. There was a crisis. God gave me the ability to solve that crisis. For example, I'm not a graphic artist, but my business do graphics. As a matter of fact, in this season, I make more money with graphics than I do from the recording value. And because of my schedule demanding now, I subcontract. So I have people that work with me. I tell them, I'm kid equipment, do what you got to do. And I give my money, give my God. And so the business now, even you see partnership. When Peter net broke and he called that fish, the Bible he beckoned the other boats to say, come. So he became a fisherman who was successful. He became this. And I believe God give us these gifts so we can not just be gifted, but become distributors in the earth. And people can benefit from it. And then you live. Because when the lady in the Bible, the lady with the oil, he said, the prophet, tell us, pay off your debt.
Go send more.
And then you live after us.
On the rest.
It's got to be something that you're living off. And that's success. You got bills to pay, you got college, and now you got two in college now, so I know.
More more.
That's just my job. What else I can do to break people into purpose and even on my schedule, I know my primary purpose is pastoring. So even though my schedule got hectic, I just find a way and I subcontract. I delegate. This business is still going.
Kingdompreneur. Let's do it. Business the King's way. Kingdompreneur. And business, all this is solving problems. Adding value to people.
That's what he did.
That's
why Joseph King was a prison. He would have
Yep.
been right
Yep.
there. The king didn't have a problem.
Yep.
The king had a problem. The
King had
butler
a
couldn't
problem.
fix it. The baker couldn't fix it. The astrologist and all of the but he said, I know a
None of
man
them.
in prison who helped me with my position too. You gotta be in position. And the king
Yes,
said, bring
yes.
him. And he solved a problem. To the
That's
point
right.
that Egypt remained the place where people went to fall.
Which tells you, no matter where you are, when you become the answer to a problem, people argue.
You better preach.
From
People will find you. Wow, that's great.
from the answer to the problem, people will find you.
And the thing about it, Pastor Clark, and I lead with this, and it's a part of your assignment. When people find you, be ready.
That's right. What's
So that's why we got to make sure you're unstuck, because we don't want you to
Yes.
have the answer, but it ain't ready.
But they're ready. Yeah. And you frustrate other people.
You better preach.
And that was you said, and we wrap up with this, which you said powerful. And a lot of people, in particularly the church and ministry, must understand this. You gotta prepare yourself. Just like you did your doctor program. There's so much courses out there. There's so much training. There's so much books. You have to level up.
To develop.
To develop. Yes.
And in the body of Christ, Pastor Clark, and I think we do a lot of disservice because we depend on the burning of the Holy Spirit. Yeah, but there's never good burning without learning.
No.
With your burning, get learning. And that's what
Yes.
I would like there's so
Yes.
many gifted people, anointed people, and people who have really been anointed by God. And they can't go beyond the border of where they are
Yes.
because they have not learned. I tell people, I came from East, and there's a way we did church East in the East. I did not do it when I got behind Uganda. And he was fine. He said, you're going to expose me to international ministry and saying things like that. And he realized, well, you can't get away with that. Yeah, but go get in front of you. You talk about all the chanting of the time. You go on TV, you get on places, and they give you 15 minutes. I went to church right to preach 2 services. So they didn't even tell me. I got there and found out that I had 30 minutes for the first service.
Wow.
My sermon normally is like 45 minutes long. So I know I can tell based on my page how I wrote. So, and that 45 to 15 minute sermon, I had to know how to maneuver that. I would not be a place where they say, you good, but you got my no. So you have to understand how to follow order and these stuff. And you are taught these things because you'll be a earning brass and a tinkling cymbal in the ears of people with our gifted anointed touch.
That's
So
right.
it's a burden, get learning. Ain't nothing wrong. It costs you doing learning. My doctorate degree, they go to Nassau every, I think it was once a month for that year. And I made it in Beth. And it paid off. The same thing. Most of it was done home, but I did a 3-day class a month in Nassau and go to Nassau. But what it gave me in return was greater than what I spent to get there. And it helped me to be so refined and to build on it to the point that I even got an opportunity to help manage that school. And it was a bit of blessing.
Open door.
Yeah, open door. And so, what's your burden, get learning.
Yes.
God ain't gonna kill you for learning and getting some learning with your Holy Ghost.
No. Thank you so much, Pastor.
Thank you for having me, Pastor. It was a joy being with you. And it's a joy seeing you do what God has called you to do.
Thank you, Pastor. A lot of nuggets for our audience and a lot of powerful lessons. So I really appreciate you accepting this invitation and supporting your support as always.
I will do it 1,000 times. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor. So thank you for joining us in our session today. As you saw, we had a really good time. And Dr. Glen Russell dropped a lot of nuggets for the young, like he said, the young, the middle, the older. A lot of nuggets about developing in the faith, a lot of nuggets about being a pastor, marriage, businessman. So we want to thank him so much. And if you enjoyed this session, please share it. That's how you support us. Please share it, like it, comment, download it on our various podcast channels, and also please subscribe to our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you again, Pastor Glen, for an excellent job.